Hello and welcome to your first S3 computing lesson. I hope to have these available for you every week on Thursday afternoons. Sometimes I might miss this deadline. I'd like to see you completing the work for the following Thursday, but I'll understand if sometimes you don't finish things in time. Please try to stay in touch with me in Google Classroom just so I know how you're getting on. Today we're going to jump right into our computer programming work. We're going to look at variables. We'll be successful if we can understand the purpose and use of variables in computer programming, and if we manage to implement, that means create, programs with variables in Scratch programming language. Just a quick note on the symbols that I'll use in these videos. If a task has a sheet or other resource to use, you'll see the Google Classroom symbol with some instructions. If there's a program to create, you'll see the Scratch cat. Usually you'll have to do a sheet as well as a program. The first task that I need you to do is find the Scratch link in the Google Classroom assignment where you found this video. It's a special link that will let you join our class for the topic. Please don't search for the Scratch website. You need to use the link, otherwise you won't be able to access any of the class studios. Don't put any of your real information into the sign up form, and use your Glow email account to sign up if it asks you for an email address. Your Glow email address will have the format your Glow username @glow.sch.uk. If you don't know your Glow username, please let me know and I'll try and help you out on Google Classroom. Pause this video now and resume once you've set up your account. Let me know in Classroom if you have any issues. In computer programming, we use variables to hold information to use later in our program. This could be text, numbers, or other values. We'll use lots of variables in our programs to hold information. The data that they hold might change as the program runs. A variable has two parts, an identifier and a value. You can think of an identifier like the name of the variable, or a label on a box. It should be meaningful and describe what the data it's holding, or what's in the box. For example, if you're holding the date of birth of a pupil inside a variable, you should call the variable pupil date of birth. A variable also has a value, or a box has a contents. This is the data that's going to be stored inside the variable. In the previous example, the variable with the identifier pupil date of birth might have the value 03/03/2005. Creating variables is a core concept in computer programming, and it's important that you understand this as it's one of the building blocks on which all programs are based. We will create boxes or variables to hold pieces of data in our programs. Setting up a variable with an identifier and a value is called assignment. We'll look at how to do this on Scratch now. You should have already signed up for the Scratch website by this point. If you haven't, please go back in the video and look at those instructions again. If you need to go back to the Scratch website, you can open any web browser and type in scratch.mit.edu into the address bar. To create a Scratch program, you need to click on the Create button at the top of the Scratch website here. This will open the Scratch programming software. Remember, we have our code blocks on the left hand side, our code area in the middle, and then our Scratch stage over on the right hand side. To run a Scratch program, we need to attach the code that we want to run to an event block. You can find these on the Events tab. We're going to use when the green flag is clicked for this program. Now let's look at how to create variables. We have to go to the Variables menu on the code shelf. Then click Make a Variable. We have to give the variable a name. This is like the label that we're putting on the box. For this first example, we're just going to use a very generic name and call it My First Variable. Notice that the variable name doesn't start with a capital letter. There's no spaces, but every new word starts with a capital letter. We'll talk more about this in another video. I'll click OK to create that variable. Notice that it appears in the top left of my stage. I can move it around anywhere I want on the stage. Next, I'm going to go back to my variables shelf. Notice how this currently says set my variable to 0. I'm going to change that using the little drop down menu to my first variable. Any variables that we create will then appear in this drop down menu later on in the video. There's a difference between the words set and change in Scratch. When we set a variable to a value, it immediately goes to the number or other value that we type in the white space here. If we use change, it will just either increase or decrease the value if it's a number. We're going to grab the set block and we're going to set my first variable, the value 13. When I click the green flag, notice how my first variable on the stage is now 13. I'm now going to create a second variable called creatively my second variable and a third variable called my third variable. Let's do that now. I'm going to grab my set block again, change it from my variable to my second variable. And I'm going to set the value of my second variable to 12. When I hit the green flag button, notice how my third variable still says 0. That's because we haven't set it to a value yet. I'm going to grab the set block again, change it from my second variable to my third variable. And instead of typing a number into the white space, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set its value to my first variable plus my second variable. Now we can't just type that in. Instead, we have to grab an operator. I'm going to choose the plus blocks. And then I'm going to go to my variables shelf again. And these little pill-shaped ones can actually slot in to anywhere with rounded edges. I'm going to grab the my first variable pill, slot it in there, zoom out a little so we can see it all, and then I'm going to grab my second variable and slot it into that next white space, and there's our final program there. So now that we have our code complete, we've got 3 lines: set my first variable to 13, set my second variable to 12, and then finally set my third variable to my first variable plus my second variable. When we hit the green flag, we can see the value of my third variable comes to 25. Now it's over to you. In Google Classroom, you'll see an assignment sheet which I need you to hand in when it's complete. Once you finish the task, make sure you share the program in the class studio and write your Scratch username in the box at the end of the task sheet so I know which project is yours. This week we've looked at variables in computer programming, how they are like boxes to hold information, also known as data, and that a variable has a label or identifier and contents known as a value. Next lesson, we'll look at different data types of variables. See you next week.